Hello, hello, and you all. Thank you once again for tuning into another episode of Outside the Box. I'm sure you've seen by the intro that we have a special segment today. Some special segments that I do sometimes called "Let's Talk About Relationships." The reason why I like to have this separate segment where we talk about relationships is because I am a certified life and relationship coach, and it seems like outside the box, like the regular podcast, kind of focus on life issues, but I really like to do something special for relationship issues because a lot of the time that's where most of our issues extend from relationships. I usually focus on romantic relationships, which is a part of the topic that we'll be talking about today, but it also is all different types of relationships, family relationships, relationships with our children, neighbors, friends, church family, and things like that. And so today we're going to kind of expand on that topic a little bit and not just talk about romantic relationships and marriages, but also family relationships, because today we're going to be talking about the trouble with blended families. This conversation is very dear to my heart. I am a part of a blended family as well. Didn't really grow up in a blended family, which I'll explain that a little bit later, but I definitely see the need for this. Blended families are becoming more of the norm, and it's really important that people have the tools, especially the Christian tools, on how to deal with it, because marriage is hard enough in itself. And when you have a blended situation, it can really be the recipe for disaster if you do not deal with it with insight and wisdom and the heart of God. And so to really dive deep into this conversation, I have two special guests, actually a husband and wife, who have a ministry where they kind of help other families with this. Before I bring them out, I just want to remind you guys to please like, share, comment, invite people to my page. These messages are not just for they're for a lot of people. So, and if they don't know that the option is here to even listen to it, then nobody can really benefit from it. So please make sure you like, share, and follow my page. Also, invite people to my page. That seems to be the best response that I get when people are actually invited. And also keep an eye out for my other smaller segments on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Tuesdays is Testimony Tuesdays, where I have a guest come on and just give a testimony about something that God has done for them in their life or a big lesson that they've learned. And then also about my Father's Business Thursdays, where I highlight a Christian business. And so that's it. And so now I will bring out my guest. And so my guest today is Carday and Aircinia Marshall. Thank you guys for tuning in. I know we were supposed to do this a while ago, and we had to reschedule. And I'm really happy. And I was really disappointed. I'm like, oh my goodness, because I really, really want to hear what you guys had to say. And so now I'm very excited that we back here doing this again, or actually got it planned out again to where we can do this. And so I really thank you guys for taking out the time to do this. So
yes, thank you
for having us. Thank you for having us.
no problem. So before we get into the conversation, can you let both just introduce yourself, let people know who you are?
Okay, I'm Aircinia Marshall. Just typical wife, mom, entrepreneur, and just serving, being the hands and feet of Jesus in the earth realm. We started Cocoon to a Butterfly ministry, which just touch on several life issues that we deal with. I once counseled with Mercy Multiplied. And so once the Lord transitioned me out, we started, serving in other capacities. And so we started, like I said, Cocoon to a Butterfly Ministries. We have, as an entrepreneur, I have Anointed Creations, where we do Christian apparel. And other awesome little knickknacks and cute little teas to speak life over individuals, because we all need life spoken over us all.
Amen.
And so and just just doing that daily and loving it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Carday Marshall. This is my beautiful wife, and we, like she said, we share a lot of businesses. We do a lot of things. I'm on the city council here in Monroe. We have a mobile food trailer where we do a lot of different fair type foods, chicken on the stick, funnel cakes, and things like that.
Oh wow!
We share the ministry together. Like she said, we do Cocoon to a Butterfly blended and Victorious. And a lot of other stuff in the community, along with taking care of the family. We have a family with 6 kids. Like we said before, I had 2, she had 2, we have 2 together. So definitely blended. But I grew up in a blended family as well. And like I said, I learned a lot growing up, but learned so much more, as an adult and as a parent.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's so much. I had a show I did some months ago now where I had a group of men come on and talk about some of the lessons. I actually did it twice. So the first time I had a group of women come on and talk about the lessons that they learned during in marriage, and then I had a group of men come on and talk about the lessons they learned through marriage. And so this is like a conglomerate of that, because it's not just marriage, but it's also kids and other people's children, your children, dealing with the people that's the other parent. I mean, like, wow. So it's really a lot. So I'm really interested in hearing some of the lessons you guys have learned and how you figured out how to make it work, and see, I kind of take notes and see if it's some of the same things that I've learned, and then to learn anything new that I missed. So now you talked about you having 2, she having 2, and then you guys have 2 together. Can you talk about just how long you've been married, and then if you have any other blended family experience? I know, Carday, you kind of mentioned that you grew up in a blended family home, but Aircinia, did you have that same experience? And again, how long have you guys been married?
Okay. Yes, I did grow up in a blended family as well, but mine was a little different. My sibling wasn't really around a lot,
Okay.
but as we got older, we began to create our own relationship, because that happens sometimes. It's so many different dynamics going on to where you have to kind of carve out your own path sometimes when you get older, you know?
Yeah.
So that's what we did. And so to this day, and it's so funny because we are very similar. We like some of the same things and everything. But yeah, so our relationship got better once we got older.
Okay.
And so yeah, and we will be married 14 years.
Oh wow! I just celebrated my 14th year wedding anniversary the end of last year, so we right there.
Yeah. May 17th, we will be 14 years.
Oh wow! So now you're talking about your other sibling. What is the age gap there? Like, how far are you guys apart?
About 12 years.
Oh wow, that's a huge difference. And so how with the 2 that you guys had before and the 2 that you have together, what are some of the age gaps? I know you probably don't want to go into the whole thing, but I really want people to get a good idea of what type of situation you guys are in so that they can know that they can do it. Yeah. So what are some of the age gaps between those kids?
We have 22, 21, 22, 17, and 12 and 9.
Okay. Wow, that's a lot. Like, I'm just starting to get into the adult kid realm. My oldest daughter will be 21 this month, actually.
Yes.
And it's a total different shift from dealing with a small kid too. And I was like, okay, when she gets 18, I'm done, and it's like, oh, I'm actually not, so and it's harder than it was before, because okay, that's all totally different story.
Yeah.
So can you guys kind of go into like your ministry and like, well, I guess you can just start by explaining some of the difficulties that you kind of ran into and how you kind of use those things to what you learned and how you use that in your ministry to help other families.
Okay. Well, we will say that when we first started out, we decided, and how we were brought together was only God, because we were not on each other's radar at all.
Okay.
But we knew that we needed to do marriage counseling. So we were like, yes, we're going to do this. We were so excited. We did marriage counseling, and it went well, minus one problem area that we had. But overall, it was really good. And we got married. And after we got married, everything just went haywire. We were like, what in the world is going on? Yeah.
And we realized that we did the marriage counseling, like you said, we did counseling, amongst ourselves. And like you said, it was good. I mean, we hashed out some things, identified some things that we were dealing with, and shared, opened that part up. But during that course, we never received any counseling as far as blending a family.
Right, right.
Not one thing,
Right.
So, and we talked about the kids and all that, but as far as just how to blend this family, what steps to take, they weren't included in the counseling or anything like that. So, like you said, once we got married and started bringing everybody together, and you got all these different personalities and characteristics, it was like, okay, we got to revamp, something something ain't right. So we going in good, but like I said, we got a whole nother level to reach.
Yeah. And I think like one of the things, and I think we do this a lot just as human beings in general. We always have this idea of how stuff is going to be. And then when we actually get in it, it's not exactly what we think. And I think a lot of times people, especially in blended families, they just have this idea that the other person is going to fully accept their child, just like they accept their child. They're going to feel about their child the way they feel about their child. And it's not something that you'd really like understand the difference between biological parent, non-biological parent, and all the dynamics. Then of course you have the kids in there and things like that. And so can you guys tell me what some of the things, like you talked about things just went haywire. Can you talk about what some of those haywire things were?
I would definitely say when it came to us coming together, spending time as a unit and bringing the children in, they were having to share the parent, with someone else. So Carday's children, they lived out of town, and so they would come in to the home to visit. Well, my children lived with us, so they came in, they were having to share their dad, and then they came in to the home to where it was structured a certain way, so it was like they were coming in and they were foreign, and you have to know how to deal with those types of situations, when they come up, and also just knowing the little things to do to ensure that the children don't feel as if they're coming into foreign situations.
So when they felt like them feeling like they were coming into a foreign situation, how did that come out? Because of course everything comes to the surface. So I'm in my mind, I'm imagining that them feeling this way created some problematic behaviors and scenarios and maybe even tension. So can you talk a little bit about how that kind of conflicted with the family dynamic that you guys had when they were not there?
Yeah. So as a child, I just from my experience, the kids, my biologicals were used to coming to the house and having me 100%. We pretty much did, whatever, we spent time together, we go out, eat, things like that, shop, all that kind of stuff. And it was just us,
Okay.
So now, the dynamics are different. They come in and, you got, at that time, 2 other kids, along with, the wife. So we have to share, we got to share that time. So, and it's kind of hard for them, to adjust to, okay, now it's different. I don't have my dad like, 100%, like I had before, and I'm only here for a short period of time. So, yeah, you could see it in the, in the attitude a little bit. You can just kind of see them, the emotions, kind of change. It may, wasn't much conversation about it, but you could tell that,
something was going on.
That they felt some type of way about it. So that's kind of what, what we experienced initially, kind of, just to themselves a little bit sometimes, and, maybe not even just kind of participating in, some of the activities because, they wanted their one-on-one, like they were accustomed to. So.
Yeah. So how did you guys first? I mean, I'm sure there was some conversations between you two about like, hey, something's going on. And so how did you guys decide to resolve it? Like, what did you do?
It really took some time because, starting out, like we said, we did not discuss these things.
Mhm.
So when it started to happen, we didn't know what to do.
Okay.
All we knew was we love our children. We are from, big loving families. We are very family oriented. We like to do things together. And so that was the mindset of just keep doing what we know to do, which is
Okay.
do, let's do, and it wasn't until, it got to a point where they got a little older. We started realizing some things. We started hearing conversations every now and then. And we realized, like, okay, we've got to do something,
Okay.
And that's when we realized in doing something, we had to first put God like directly in the center of it all. Because had we not done that, we would not have been able to stay afloat or build a solid foundation at all.
Yeah.
One of the reasons that it took some time is because as a child, they don't understand, and we had some of those conversations, they want to know why. Why why you're not with mom anymore, why you're not with dad anymore, why you with someone else, and we have to pretty much start a whole new family when we had a family recently. And like I said, as babies, as toddlers and things like that, they don't they don't really discuss that, but as they grow, they start to wonder and see, okay, I'm going home, I'm coming back to dad. Dad has a wife, or mom has a new husband, and I'm not used to that, or that's not what I want. I want my mom and dad together. So so those conversations, start to happen as they mature and as they grow. So even if you get to a stage as they mature, you still have to, deal with those stages as they mature.
Yeah. And I think you bring up a really interesting point, because I know my parents divorced when I was a preteen, and then my mom had a guy that she brought into the picture, and we all hated the guy. Like, we just did not want him there. You're not our dad. Please go away, And I know it created some tension between their relationship, and it even got to a point where he kind of like didn't want us around, because we just kind of, and we were kids, but we still have this kind of attitude, like we didn't want him around. And in our minds, the enemy was in our house. Like,
Yeah.
And so I think you bring up an interesting thing, because a lot of times the kids do take their parents not being together anymore and somebody else coming in as a threat. They don't really as a threat to kind of what they were used to and what they had, or even their parents possibly ever getting back together, because now you're here, so they're not going to get back together. And so in your experience with kids feeling this way, like you say, you guys kind of brought God in the center, but how did you address to let them know that the other parent was not a threat, and to try to help them accept the other parent, because that's really what you're trying to do?
We had tough conversations, really. Like, growing up, I know for my family, to some extent, tough conversations were not there.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be able to have tough conversations, but also be led by the Spirit of God, as far as the maturity of the conversation.
Yeah.
Because you have to be able to answer the questions truthfully, but on the level to where it doesn't pull them into adult things.
Yeah. Oh, great answer. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so we had to have those tough conversations. And we also made sure that we didn't force titles. So when it came to like my sons at the time, we didn't come in and say, okay, this is daddy.
Okay.
Daddy. We allowed them to come up with a respectful name.
Okay.
And so that's what we allow them to do, and so they had, a name that they would call him, they call him Q Daddy, that's what they called him when they were little. But over time, Q dropped off.
Okay.
And it just became Daddy, But also we explain that, hey, having someone else in your life only means that you have more people to love you, not to replace, your biological dad. It just means that you have more people to love you, and you begin to connect with an individual on a different level. And we had to learn that because with my two sons, I can say they connected with Carday on a different level that they did with their biological dad. So they like certain things that Carday likes that their dads may not like. So that's, so we kind of drew on those things, but we made sure to explain to them, this is not, we're not replacing. We're not replacing. This is just more people to love you, and more people for you to connect with and to love.
Yeah. So I was in a Facebook group, and there was some ladies in there asking about getting the child's permission before you marry somebody that's, of course, not their biological parent. And there was a lot of course, mixed conversation with that. So some people would say, well, you should have made sure your child likes the person first before you marry them. And if your child doesn't like them, then don't marry them. What do you guys think about that take on the situation? I know how I feel about it.
Wow. I first want to say that they are allowing a child to weigh in on a mature decision, but not only that, on a God-ordained decision.
Exactly.
Okay, so I'm going to say no to that simply because we truly believe in God-ordained marriages, when there is a fit, because I have a purpose, he has a purpose, and God linked us together, and we push one another so that God will get glory through our purpose. And so to give other people the opportunity to weigh in on something that God has ordained, that's a big no-no. And that's a setup for some trouble.
I mean, especially a child, like it's one thing to ask your parents what they think, but to give a child, like, I agree. So Mr. Carday, can you chime in on that?
Yeah, the child is going at that age, a child is going to have, pretty much selfish desires.
Yeah.
And that child is going to want that parent to be with that, with their biological, parents. If they see someone, like you said before, if you see someone just coming in, they're going to feel like that's a threat because they feel like mom and dad still got a chance. They may see mom and dad come and communicate, drop one off or something like that, have a conversation. Okay, they still like each other. They might have a shot.
Yeah.
And the kid is probably going to try to work to do whatever they can. They're going to do whatever they can to try to make sure mom and dad stay together. And this other person, even if like they're going to try to make sure that other person is not, getting in a leg way to to a marriage. Yeah. So you don't put that responsibility on a child, like you said, especially when it's God ordained. When God puts two people together, you don't ask somebody else, for permission. You already got permission from the Most High. So I mean, you don't put that child in that situation. The child is already protective of the parents. You know what I'm saying? Children are going to be protective of whoever they're with, mom or dad, especially if it's mom. They're going to want mom to be happy. And like you said, they're going to do whatever it takes. So, they're not going to want anyone to infiltrate, their territory.
Yeah.
But I definitely want to say also, but definitely hear the child out and talk to them. Definitely, because we never want a child to feel like they're not heard, because even in them sharing, you can bring clarity to situations and help them to understand, maybe certain processes of how they think, may not be in alignment. And what we do, we strive to raise our children according to the word of God. So what we do is we take it straight to the word. They already know. They're like, oh, here they come. Here come a scripture. It's coming.
And the desire will be for the other parent that's not involved is to say, it's okay. Mom is okay, dad is okay. I'm okay. That we both moved on, and dad is dad is living a different life, mom's living a different life. It's okay. But sometimes that's not the case. You have manipulation that comes into play and things like that. You have anger, bitterness, and all of that. So if the kid is hearing something at home, negatively, that's going to have a negative impact on that kid and make that kid feel a different way altogether. So regardless of what you say, they're going to already have it in their mind, which way they want to go.
Yeah, and I definitely want to get to that. I mean, I'm sure other people watching wants to get to that too, because that's a big part of the dynamic with blended families is other exes and trying to stick their fingers and toes and eyes and everything and what's going on.
Right.
And to some degree, they have a right to when it comes to their kids. So I definitely want to get to that, but I want to ask you first before we do that, since we're kind of talking about kids here. There's one thing when you have to deal with these type of things when it comes to your own children. So how do you guys handle it when it comes to like Aircinia? How do you handle it when it comes to Carday's children and vice versa? Do you just step back and let Carday deal with his children and then you kind of take your cue from him on what to do or what not to do? Or do you make your own kind of efforts to try to reach out to the kids? Like, what do you guys think about that?
Starting out, we did initially, deal hands on more with our own children. But when it came to him needing to go to work and then all of the children are together and everything, we did have to make some adjustments. But you definitely have to do it according to the flow of your own household, because you probably can do certain things that another family couldn't do, and so, but in the beginning, starting out as it pertained to discipline and different things like that, we did that, separately, until the children trusted us enough to know our heart and to know, who we were, individually.
Okay, that's good. You have any input on that?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, like I said, we started off like that because, like you said, we're trying to blend. So, and like it's new for for both of us. And like I said, we could tell that the kids, kind of, had some pushback and things like that. So we didn't want to, even as the kids were coming in, as the kids were coming in town and things like that, we want them to feel love, the whole time. And even if they did something wrong, we didn't want to, just have a whole weekend of, just a negative weekend, disciplining and things like that. But we did, set boundaries and things like that for the house. We also had a family meeting. We just sat everybody down. Once we kind of, got our bearings and just kind of shared. This is where we are. This is our desire. For the family. We desire for everybody to come. Have a good time, share with one another, and have a good time. But A, B, C, D, would not be done. And what have you. So you have to set a foundation, at some point to where the kids understand, okay, because, one household is not going to operate, like like the other. So it's stuff that they may do, they may get away with, things like that, at home or, wherever they are that, we may not allow. So, we have to set those boundaries and have pushback. Well, mom, let me do this. Dad, let me do that.
Yeah.
So you have that, to deal with as well. And then the parents, the biological parent and the phone's parents, have to be on one accord in order to, pretty much move that process forward as well. So it's, like I said, it's a process. It takes some time.
Yeah, I can imagine because just trying. Yeah, and I can imagine because just trying to get on one accord with your spouse is one thing, but then when you have other people with their own ideas, oh my goodness, like it can turn into a mess. But two things that stood out to me with what you guys were saying is like, and this is where I like what you're saying, Aircinia, about letting the Holy Spirit lead you and things like that, because he's always going to have you directed in love and to do things in love. And sometimes I think we kind of downplay that effectiveness that has for kids, because especially in the Black community, we can be very big on discipline and, you know, just do what I say and type of stuff like that.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, I mean, sometimes it's necessary, but there are other ways to do things, and kids still respond to love and stuff the way anybody else would. And if you just do things led in love, and again, that goes like what you're saying, at least listening to the kid, don't just make it seem like your opinion or feelings doesn't matter here at all. Allow them to have some dignity in the situation, because they still have that as well. It usually just creates a better atmosphere for them to be more receptive to the change. And so I really think, like, you know, the love of God is very, very powerful, that it can change the atmosphere and things like that to make it a little more moldable and easy. So that's one thing that you said. Another thing is, like, you guys are talking about being on one accord. I mean, you know, dealing with your kids and his kids, and how do we get them to kind of at least gradually accept this winning situation. But the main thing that is required in order to do that effectively is that you guys are on one accord. Like, you guys so it's like, you can't be like, you know, on totally different pages, and you're doing one thing over here, you're doing, like, that's going to make the situation much more chaotic. So it's like, you have to make sure the foundation, which is your marriage and relationship, is kind of strong first, before you can kind of get on one accord and work together to now bring all these other people in. And so I just wanted to point that out as well. Yeah.
And that was the case initially. You know, we you know, and that's what you know, when we talked earlier, that's why I said I had to get myself out of the way, because, you know, like I said, I was used to doing things, you know, a certain way as a single parent. You know, so and, you know, in my own mind, I was doing what was right. You know, I was taking care of my kids. I was providing for them, you know, making sure they, you know, had what they needed and all that. So, but as you know, once you get a wife and a family, you have to make some changes. You have to make some adjustments, you know, and like I say, you have to be on one accord. So what I may feel is right, you know, or was right, it's totally different as, you know what I'm saying, as it pertains to being, you know, a husband and a spouse. Things totally change. I mean, I was used to jumping on the road, you know, whenever I got ready, you know, to go pick up my kids and things like that. You know, but, you know, now, you know, I got a family, you know, I got a wife, and I have other children. So I have more responsibility. You know, I have, you know, to take all of that in consideration. What's going on at the house, what the kids have going on, you know, possibly, you know, during their week and stuff like that. So you have to create, like I said, we definitely have to be on one accord, because, you know, she may have had plans, for us, you know, so we had to make sure that, you know, we were on one accord. And it was hard for me, because I had to kind of pull back on, you know, things that I normally did. And that, because like I said, me, you know, being a father, I thrive on being there for the kids. So it was some, you know, some situations where I couldn't leave because we had previous engagements and things like that. So I felt like, you know, for a while, I felt like, you know, I was neglecting, you know, the others, because, you know, I had to kind of pull back to make sure that, you know, home was taken care of, you know. I had to do some soul searching and, you know, some praying and things like that to kind of make sure that I was in line with, you know, what needed to be done as a head household.
Right.
If I'm out of line, then we all gonna be
exactly. Did you have anything you wanted to add, Aircinia?
Yeah, as he was sharing, like when he said that he was so used to jumping on the road at any time and different things like that. Well, being a helpmate, you know, you come in and you have to take care and help, you know, your spouse. And so the bumping of heads and ideas came into the fact that he was used to going and just running and not taking care of himself, you know. And so coming in and like, no, you can't, you know, no. And my words, I had to learn, the Lord had to train me on my words and everything.
Yeah.
And and my heart was in the right place. I'm coming in and saying, no, you can't do this, But the Lord began to train my words as a wife, to help him to understand I'm not trying to control you. I'm trying to care for you. I'm trying to take care of you. And because I would tell him all the time, I said, if you're on the road all the time and you're not thinking things through, you're just going, none of us will have you. Nobody would have you, And so the Lord began to work with me on how to share and how to communicate with him, because I knew that, he wanted to be there for his children in every capacity. There were times where we could all get on the road and go to their functions. And then there were times where he could only get on the road, But I just would come in and say, okay, honey, you don't need to do it this way. Instead of coming in and say, you can't do that,
Right.
Truth be told, the enemy will come in and start a whole war.
Right.
One sentence,
Yeah.
And so we had to learn, in that area as well, how to communicate with each other properly. But also we had to make sure that we were reminded each day that we were each other's helpmate. And that there were things that he probably saw that I didn't see, and things that I saw that he, didn't see, So it started, that was the beginning of us getting on the right page. We had to, like he said, he started working on himself, and I had to start working on myself as well.
Exactly.
Very vocal.
Yeah. Look, a lot of us women have that issue. So I just did a show last week about how to stand for your marriage. And we kind of went into how a lot of times women, because we do feel helpless a lot of the time when it comes to doing stuff, that we start to use our words as weapons without even sometimes realizing that we're doing that. But it kind of comes out of a place of helplessness. But God really does have to help you to realize what you're doing and to tame the tongue. So we have that. Yeah. So what I wanted to ask you guys, which I know some people want to know, how do you deal with the exes? Like, how do you, because a lot of times that can be, if that's not the first problem is the kids, the second problem is definitely the exes and how they contribute or sometimes don't contribute to the situation. So you might have exes that are not in the picture at all, and then more of the financial burden, everything. The care falls on just, you two as a couple. And then you have parents, exes who, or the other biological parent who's kind of like what Carday said, trying to manipulate and sabotage and things like that. So what is your advice about that?
I will first say agape love. Agape love. One thing that we truly realized and made a point to do was never to bash the other parents, simply because that doesn't benefit anyone, first of all. But not only that, the children are a part of the other parent.
Exactly.
So if we are bashing the other parent, then we can open the door for the enemy to use that in the child's life to say, well, if that's my dad and they feel like that about my dad or my mom, then, what about me?
Exactly. Exactly.
So that's something that we did not do, will not do, and even when situations came up, we acknowledged the truth of whatever was going on. We acknowledged the truth, but we also had to come together and come up with a plan of action, to stand together, to deal with it.
Yeah. Wow.
And God worked with me, in multiple, capacities. But one thing he told me to do was to go all the way back. Like go all the way back to conception, like when kids were born, and just look at, like I said, I had to work on myself. I had to work a lot on myself, and it took me back to the beginning when everything started. And he said, repent, ask for forgiveness, and and move forward. And that's what I had to do. I mean, I went all the way back to the time when we had the kids, because we had the kids out of wedlock. So So I went back, did all that, asked God for forgiveness for that, repented for that. And after that, I reached out to each one. I had two kids by, two different mothers. And so I reached out to each one of them and I apologized for everything that happened.
Oh wow.
From the beginning on up to, to where we were at that point. Any type of, you know, anything that may have happened that, that caused him to feel any type of anger, any type of bitterness, anything like that. I laid it all out and apologized and pretty much just built back up from there.
Wow.
This is my desire. I'm willing to help. We're willing to help. We want to raise our kids properly, and we want the relationship that God wants us to have as far as raising our kids, regardless of what it looks like.
Right.
So I did that, and like I said, and regardless of how everybody else felt, that's what he told me to do. That's what I did, and that's pretty much how I built my relationship back up from there.
Wow. So do you feel like, because I know there's a lot of hurt women out there that would love to have an apology and they don't never get it. But so how do you feel like did that really change your dynamic between you and the kids' moms?
It definitely did. It definitely did. I mean, even right now, the relationship, between Aircinia and the parents is totally different than it was when it first began. And like I said, I was in my own, feelings, back then. I was doing things my own way, not God's way. So, regardless of how anybody felt, I'm like, okay, these are my kids. This is all I'm concerned with. Wasn't really thinking about like, look, I'm gonna provide. I'm gonna take care of them. I'm gonna love them, and that's pretty much where I was just hardwired. And like I said, it really didn't matter, what anything else thought, what how anybody else felt at that time. I felt like I was doing, what I was supposed to do as a father, because you never. You weren't trained on, how to be a father, growing up. So, and then in the midst of, like I say, you got division, you got your differences between, your biological parents and things like that. So you just pretty much doing what you feel is, best.
Mm.
So, but like I said, as I, just kind of consulted with God, prayed and things like that, He showed me how to move. And as we did that, things started to get better. They started to see that, that I was genuine, that my heart was in the right place. And regardless, what had transpired in the past, that I truly, was asking for forgiveness and I truly wanted to, make things right.
Right. Wow. I love that because, and I think a lot of times, and of course, this can apply to every relationship, that sometimes people get caught up in their offenses, their hurts, feeling betrayed and things like that. And they keep those things at the forefront. And really what God brings in, and they feel like forgiveness and stuff like that makes them weak or it makes them think you're just going to run over them. And that's what I so much like about God, because He brings so much wisdom into a situation to actually get the results that you want. Like because deep down, a lot of the times what we want is not necessarily bad. We just don't know how to get there. So you can say, yeah, I want to raise my kids and I want to do this. And this lady is in my way. She hurt me, whatever. But God is like, no, there's a different way to maneuver this to actually get the results that you want. And which is to be there for your kids, raise your kids in peace and things like that. And then but it takes for you to kind of put that other stuff to the side, put the feelings that you had to the side, the resentment that you had to the side. You know what? Let me just forgive you and just move on. And so I like the wisdom that God allowed. I mean, I always say the Bible is just filled with wisdom that even if you don't believe in God, you can't deny the wisdom that's in there. Like, a lot of the stuff that's in there, it's been backed up by science now and psychology and things like that. When God just said in the word, renew your mind. Now they have all this mindfulness approach. It's the same thing.
Absolutely. And one of the things that also is something that we keep on the forefront of our minds is that we want to make sure that we're passing down generational blessings and not generational curses to our children. So what we will not deal with in this generation, it will move forward. So we begin to clean up and start to deal with stuff, because we were like, okay, we don't want to hand this off, to the kids, because as far as from my blended family situation, there was that division. I didn't get close to, my sibling until we were older, so that was something that I was like, you know what? Nope. We got to deal with this. We got to cut this off in this generation so it won't move forward. So that was our mindset. Like, nope, we got to make sure that the generational blessings are created and moving forward for our children, grandchildren. You got to think long term when you start to blend your family.
Yeah, exactly. And God is just the one to come in and give you the insight exactly how to do that. Because if we go by our own thinking, and that's not to say all the time our thinking is bad, but it's still limited,
Yeah,
God can really expand your understanding of situations and help you to see so many different things that's at play that you're not thinking about to help you do that. So absolutely. So Aircinia, from a woman's point of view, how did you handle X issues?
I am the one that pray and fast a lot in the family. There are times, and I'm one to take a different approach. At times, I'm very big on words, words that we speak, but also words that we allow to impact us and into our ear gate. So I would communicate when I needed to, but if there ever was a time that the communication got negative, I disconnect, for a period of time, because the way I view it is, and not in a sense where I disconnect to where we're not able to take care of the kids properly, but it's like, okay, we're not going to have this conversation right now, in that capacity where you pull away, because what doesn't need to happen is that you keep forcing conversations and then the wrong things start to spew out. And so sometimes when the communication begins to get a little rough and attacks or whatever start to happen, you got to pull back and you got to revamp. You got to go before the Father and say, okay, Lord, I need you to teach me how to deal with this, because again, what do we say? The foundation of it is agape love, like literally, so I had to really learn how to truly stay in that posture of agape love and not getting in my feelings when things would transpire, And then to be honest, when it came to a certain age with the kids, I would allow a little more communication, with the ex than I would have, but I still stayed in the loop, So, and again, it was just, when it got crazy, I go in my prayer closet. Because I learned that when you're blending a family, the enemy gets into all kind of little cracks and crevices, If we don't stay prayerful and if we don't fast to get insight and wisdom and stuff, we will just jump in that thing and be all in our emotions. We'll be cutting up and clowning and just mess up everything.
Exactly.
So yeah, I had to learn that. I really, really had to learn to not get in my feelings. And one of the things I always say is this: if you have a child by someone and you're not with them now, at one point you cared about that person. It was just solving that person, and so the way I interact and, try to communicate is just with, respect and, to the point to say, you know what, I have to make sure that I continue to respect you, not take disrespect, but draw boundaries. You know, we've had some crazy moments where, we dealt with some things, but overall, I thank God that we were able to continue communicating and being able to take care of the kids and do what needed to be done.
Yeah, yeah.
We just kind of have to get that direction from God as to when to pull back, when to be quiet.
Yeah, absolutely.
The thing is to never give up. I mean, the enemy wants you to fail. And that's why a lot of blended families fail, because they feel like, that it's never going to get better.
Yeah.
So they came out of a bad relationship, or they came whatever happened in the past with previous relationship. Like, well, this is no better than the last relationship. So so they give up. I believe people give up too soon. And God never meant for marriages to be divided.
Yeah.
If He put you together, then you definitely can make it. You can make it through. He never said it's going to be easy. But he's always there, and He's going to help us through anything He puts us into. So and we have to trust that. Regardless of what situation that we're in, even in the marriage, He didn't put us together for us to break up.
Exactly. And so it's funny that you say that, because when Aircinia was talking, the thing that was coming to my mind is like, sometimes you just have to be patient, because it's very easy to see all these situations. They look really huge. They're touching you, hitting you all your sensitive spots. For you to just say, forget it, I can't do this. And even when you pray, that doesn't mean solution is going to come really quickly. And so you just kind of have to pray, do direct, like what you guys are saying, deal with things how God is telling you to do. And then after that, you have to wait it out. Like, you have to keep doing what you're doing. Make sure you're doing the right things. You're not making the situation worse, and just wait it out, because I've noticed that over time, you really start to see how God is kind of maneuvering and working in situations. A lot of times, because He's God and we know He has the power to create a universe, we're like, why are you taking so long to fix this? Like, you just snap your fingers and it'll be better. But God is patient, and His concern is for everybody, even the exes and things like that. And He knows how to maneuver through the situation to get the most healing and the most benefit for everybody involved, not just the parents or even just the kids, but for everybody. So sometimes you just have to wait it out to see God's results come to fruition.
Because everyone's in a different place, spiritually, So I mean, everyone's in a different place spiritually, emotionally, at the same time. So even if you're at a place where you're at peace and things like that, the other parties may be still in a place where they're not ready to receive that, they're not ready to go to a certain level. So so everything that you put forward, you're not going to get the response that you may desire, or you may want to see at that moment. So I mean, it may take a couple of years. Some things you may do, you may see results in in a couple of weeks or months or whatever. But some things may take years.
But it's always worth the wait, is what I've learned with God. It's like, it's always worth the wait. So so I want to ask Aircinia, you were saying that you guys have really dealt with some really serious stuff and some, it sounds like tension-filled stuff. I want to ask, and if you guys don't want to answer the question, it's fine. But has everything's ever got to a point where you was like, we can't do this, and you considered parting ways?
Yes.
I love honesty.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Absolutely. But the one thing that kept me grounded was I knew that God put us together.
Oh, wow.
And even to the point where when He came, like how He shared how He ended up coming to my job to talk to me, all of that is a reminder to say, no matter what you guys come up against, what is thrown your way, God always reminds me, I put you guys together. You have a purpose. And even though like the things that we've gone through blended family wise, and the things that took some time to come forth or to break through, even in those things, He showed us that it was to help other people. Because if everything just fell in our lap, then
you don't learn anything.
You don't learn anything. You don't learn how to lean on him. You don't learn how to trust him. You don't learn how to pray. You don't learn how to fast. You don't learn how to speak life, even when the situation looks dead. You don't learn any of that,
And this ministry is not developed. This ministry doesn't happen because we've shared, our testimony in, several different, events, and people are just like, wow, I've experienced this, and no one ever told me, no one has ever shared it with me like this, or, no one ever told me that, this is possible, or I'm glad to hear that it's possible. I mean, some people are just glad to hear that, it can be done.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, with the number of blended families that are in, that are in the world right now, it's necessary, because I mean, over half of your families right now are blended families. So I mean, the devil will definitely work on that if he doesn't want that, he doesn't want that area to work. Look, he's gonna do whatever he can, because he knows, like, okay, they already, kind of struggling, and they got a second chance. Nah, I don't want that. He's gonna play on all those emotions and things like that, to try to break up. He don't want families to be together anyway. So the blended family is just that much, more work, but it's doable. And people just gotta know that it's doable.
Yeah. And that's the thing about testimonies and sharing stuff like this. Even with my whole podcast, Outside the Box, it's like understand that God can be in the midst of like so many different situations where we seem to limit him, because I know for some people who might feel like, well, you had kids out of wedlock. Like, what do you expect? And this is just a consequence of what you did and stuff like that. I know even me, I brought 2 kids into the marriage. That thought has come to my mind. Of course, it probably was the enemy, but you really try to limit God and you think he can't help you in this. Or, I have had shows about addiction and depression and so many things. We just limit God. And in this situation, it just shows that God is bigger than all of our mistakes, our biggest mistakes. If we just listen to him, trust him, and let him guide us, he can show us how to bring anything that was meant for bad or even started off the wrong way. He can bring it around and turn it into good. So
yeah. And even and the way I look at it, even in our mistakes and the consequences that come after it, I tell myself all the time, God is right there with me in my consequences.
Right.
He's right there, so we're not alone.
Yeah, and that's the amazing thing about him, because people will leave when the consequences come, but God stays right there with you the whole time. He's even patient with you. He works with you. I mean, even if you run around like crazy or hopeless and act like you think stuff is not going to work out, he'll wait for you to calm down, wait for you to gather yourself, and then he's like, okay, are you ready? Are you ready to listen now? So he's always there. And it's such a comfort for me over the years that I've been a Christian, but I really, really understand that no mistake I make is too big for him to just leave me. He's always there. And it helps bring me back to earth a little bit faster that I know that he's there.
And that's the other thing that we have to realize, that we're not perfect.
Absolutely.
We're not perfect beings. We're not perfect parents. So we're gonna make mistakes. We're gonna make mistakes. Even if we've been in relationships and trying to do it again, we're still gonna make mistakes.
Exactly.
But, the goal is to, like I say, trust God and never give up. And you'll see, he'll start to show you things. I mean, even in our, in our family, he started to show us signs that, things are, the fruits of our labor, we're not in vain. He's showing us, victories and, and things like that from time to time. So, I mean, we know, okay, we see you, God.
We're on the right path.
That hope keeps you going.
It really does.
Yeah, so before we wrap up here, because we're coming to the end, I just wanted to, because I was thinking before about, how I was saying everything that you do when it deals with your kids has to do with you guys being on one accord. And so I thought it was really important for me to also mention that even that being on one accord, it is dependent upon what type of parent you are to your child, because even if you're on one accord with your spouse, but you don't have that great of a relationship with your kid, it's going to make things a little bit more difficult. So I just wanted to throw that in there, because I have 5 children myself. And so, a lot of times you get people that they don't really pay as much attention to kids and give them as much credit as they need. Like, to me, those are God's kids, and he just gave them to me to take care of on this earth. So you really have to be careful how you go about saying things and doing things in the way you address things with them. And so it's not enough to, you know, have your spouse, you come in and it's me and your spouse against the world and the kid falls by the wayside. Like, you really have to be mindful of the type of parents you are to your kid, that you talk to your kid, you're attentive to your kids and things like that. And that makes any direction you give them as far as like what needs to happen within the blended family much more receptive for them to go through. So
right. Because I've even we have, but I've even apologized to the kids.
Yes, we have. Oh,
I've gone as far as apologizing to the kids for things that I did the wrong way. You know, and it just gives them, it builds up their trust, builds up the love, builds up the confidence that you know, okay, you know, dad is, you know, is really trying to be here, for me, really trying to, you know, develop this relationship. So we just have to be, you know, just, you know, receptive to the spirit, you know, what the spirit tells us to do. And that's the thing, we just stay rooted in God, regardless of what happened. You know, we stay rooted in God, because if we hadn't, you know, ain't no telling how many mistakes we would have made on top of the mistakes we were making.
Exactly.
You know, but, you know, like I say, that's what has kept us, you know, thus far. And you know, even with the kids, you know, sometimes they didn't want to go to church at times and things like that. You know, but like I said, we're starting to see the fruits of that as well. You know, just keeping them rooted in God. And you know, like I say, that's pretty much what kept us, was just that we made a decision that, okay, we're just gonna trust God and, you know, and go from there.
Wow. So before we wrap up here, I just want you guys to, you know, give any last words. So if anybody is watching from a blended family, of course, from a male's point of view and then a woman's point of view, what advice would you give to any woman, Aircinia, about a blended family? Like, just a key advice that you think would really be really helpful.
Okay, my key advice would be, there was a gentleman that we learned about. His name is Ron Deal. And he spoke about blended families being like a crock pot, the meal in a crock pot, meaning if you're doing stew, you got to put all these different things in there. And over time, while it's cooking, some things became tender before others. Okay. Meaning there's going to be times where one child may warm up before the other child does, you know, toward the other, toward, you know, you as a woman, you know, but, you know, allow the child to walk their own path respectfully, you know, and allow them to connect with you on their own terms. Don't force it, you know, trust God, rise each morning and pray and declare unity, you know, for your marriage, for your children, and trust God and walk in agape love toward, of course, your husband and toward the children, as well as the other, you know, parents, you know, in the family as well.
Amen. Mr. Carday.
Well, like you said, just trust God. And because, you know, like I said, the male is the head of the household. And whatever flows from the head is going to trickle down, you know, into the family. So if the head of the household is not operating, you know, in a godly manner, it's going to flow, you know, it's going to flow down to, you know, the kids and everybody else that's, you know, that's surrounded. If there's a negative mindset coming from the head, it's going to be negativity all through the household. And to just, like I said, just not rely on your own wisdom, you know, rely on the wisdom of God, let God use you, and let him, you know, show you how to navigate through those situations that may be difficult sometimes. And just know that it all works out, you know, for the good in the future.
Yeah. Amen. I love it. I mean, of course, there's so many avenues we can go into with this conversation. I'm thinking of some stuff right now, but I'm like, hey, it's time, you know. maybe we can come back and do something again, maybe a different topic or something like that. But this is definitely something that is really needed for the time that we're in now. And so,
Yeah.
But I thank you both for coming and sharing your experiences and your testimonies. And if you want to let people know about your ministry, where they can find out more information about you, anything that you have going on, I'll leave this, we can wrap up with that.
Okay. Well, we have Cocoon to a Butterfly Ministry. We're on Facebook, and that page we share God's Word. We do challenges every week, and we do pop-up lives where we cover different topics on there. And so every now and then, sometimes you'll see me, and then sometimes you'll see us both on there, especially as it pertains to families. You know, you want to make sure that we present a unified front as it pertains to families, because that's the first ministry that God gave us, which is family, you know. So we do have that page. Also, we have blendedandvictorious.com, where we do our blog. We discuss different topics and everything. And coming soon on Amazon, as well as on our Cocoon to a Butterfly ministry, we will have Blended and Victorious, a guide, a biblical approach to blending your family God's way. This right here focuses on self, the parents, us making sure that our foundation is right when it comes to us blending our families. So we deal with some very, very important and tough topics in this workbook. You get through this workbook, declare the word of God, and trust God. You'll be on the right path to blending your family right.
Yeah, amen. So links for their group and their website should be either above or below this post. So if you're interested in reaching out to them and getting some more information, even some of your own questions answered and things like that, you guys, please feel free to reach out, because like I said, this is a growing thing and we need all the help that we can get, because life is difficult. Life is very, very difficult, and blended families just bring another level of complexity that, like, there's some stuff we can do without God. Like, granted, we can. Some stuff, like, hey, we need God, and blended families is one of those things that we absolutely need God to help us do it the right way. So
yes, listen, we put him in everything.
Yeah.
We put him in everything.
Yeah. So thank you so much, you guys, for coming on, and make sure you guys tune in next week, especially Tuesday and Thursday for my Testimony Tuesdays, or About My Father's Business Thursdays, and then also for my live show on Saturdays at 12 p.m. So thank you again, and I'll talk to you guys soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Bye-bye.